Heyo, Omni Dogs and Omni Kittens. Welcome to our new show, Crime Corner. This is Omni Dog, joined by, as always, with Taylor Brown. Taylor, how's it going?
It's going really well, and I'm really excited to be talking about a book that doesn't involve Batman. Even though I do love Batman, I like a lot of other comics as well, and my favorite genre is crime. I love crime movies, crime novels, crime comics, and so I really appreciate that Jess has given me another forum to vocalize my fandom. So thank you.
Yes, and we're going to be talking about crime comics here in Crime Corner once a month. And we've got three interesting books that we read and will review now. And first, Taylor will be interested to know, and I'm hiding the back so my number doesn't show because someone would zoom in and find it on the reflection of this, what my number is. That is my William County library card, which means I now can do Hoopla on it.
You have no idea how much money you're going to save.
I can do 10 books a month on Hoopla.
That's what I have.
Prince William
because some libraries only do like 3 or 4, so we luck out with 10.
Yeah. So
you'll definitely burn through that easily, though.
I'm pretty excited. I can finally do Hoopla. I got to text Travis Gilmer because he's the one that also has been pushing me to do it. So that's what I did. I went down to IKEA to pick up a bookshelf for my daughter, and there was a library right near it. And that's no, the audience won't know it, but I was a little late getting back to do this video with Taylor because I had to stop and get this card so I could get Hoopla finally, because my county doesn't even have Hoopla.
They have a great selection of DC and Marvel. I'm sorry, no, not DC and Marvel, DC and Image. Their Marvel selection isn't great, but you can pretty much read almost every Image title, which is great because you can save money on those trade paperbacks and wait for the hardcover by just reading the trades on Hoopla. And so that way you don't have to keep waiting and waiting for that inevitable hardcover. Like for people who waited for Kill or Be Killed to come out in hardcover, they waited for like 3 years to read the whole series, which is fine. But I like to really read ahead. So it was nice having Hoopla so I could finish all these different series that I really enjoy.
Yeah, I would have liked to have done that with Kill or Be Killed.
I think you'll definitely find yourself saving a lot of money. Your wife's going to be happy, I think.
Good.
So happy wife, happy life. So you'll be good.
Yeah, you'll notice there's nothing that rhymes with husband. Happy husband, happy. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares about the husband.
Yeah, no.
I've learned that, especially having a baby. No one asks how I'm doing. It's always, how's the baby doing? How's your wife doing? I'm like, how am I doing? Ask me how I'm doing. Don't you care? Nobody cares.
Nope.
Nope.
So the first book we're going to talk about is Death or Glory, right? By Rick Remender.
Yes. And do you want me to read the summary on the back?
Yeah, that's what I usually do.
Or do you want to read it, or do you want me to?
No, go ahead. I'll highlight myself so I can show some of the art, and you can talk about the book.
Sounds good. All right. 5,000 miles, 4 heists, 3 days, 2 psychopaths, and 1 woman who's had enough. Meet Glory, raised off the grid in a convoy of truckers, the last men and women fighting for true freedom on the American open road. Now, in order to pay for her beloved father's life-saving surgery, Glory has 3 days to pull off 4 dangerous cross-country heists with mob killers, crooked cops, and a psycho ex-husband all out to bring her in or die trying. That's a summary on the back of the book. And I really found the premise of Glory and her family living off the grid to be very interesting. She doesn't have an insurance card. She doesn't have a birth certificate. She doesn't have a social security number. Her mom and her dad wanted her to truly live a free life and not be constrained by the stresses of our modern day society. And so Glory and her family have found a group of like-minded free spirits who drive trucks across the country. And that's like her family. And I think we've all had the dream of just selling all of our stuff and just hitting the open road. Because sometimes our responsibilities can really overwhelm us and our stuff can feel like it owns us. So I found that premise to be really interesting. I think we've all had that fantasy sometimes, just like getting rid of everything and just leaving it all behind with your family. So I found that part of it to be not you, Jess.
No, I want more stuff.
I do like stuff. I'm just saying occasionally it's like, oh, having all this stuff is just really annoying sometimes. It'd be nice to get rid of it and move on. Your wife would like this book then because she wants you to get rid of some of your stuff.
She does want to get rid of all her stuff.
And so this lifestyle seems really appealing and attractive on the outside, but Rick Remender really shows you how it's not very viable. Because if you don't have an insurance card, what happens when you need medical assistance? That's what happens to her dad. He needs a liver. He needs this life-saving surgery, and they don't have any insurance. Like I just had a baby over a month ago, and I can't imagine paying that bill without insurance. Or your 7-day hospital stay you had a month or two ago. Imagine that bill without insurance.
Holy smoke.
You'd be buried for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And so Rick Remender really shows the shadow side of this dream that a lot of people do have, which I found very intriguing.
Yeah, and just a quick aside about the art by, I guess it's a French artist, and his name is Bengal.
Right. I've heard Gio say it that way, so I'll trust Gio.
Bengal?
Yes.
Yeah, and he's really famous. I have a lot of Lion Forge books by him. He does such a good job on the art. I just don't know if I can do it justice here, but the artwork is just brilliant.
It said he drew on All New Wolverine. Did you know that?
What's that?
It says he drew for All New Wolverine in his bio.
I didn't. Oh, I'm gonna have to go back and look at that. I don't know if I picked up on that.
Maybe he drew a couple issues or a fill-in issue.
Oh, if he drew any, that's pretty amazing. That's a big get, I think, because he's a really well-known European artist.
Okay, I don't think I've ever really seen much by him. I have read All New Wolverine, so maybe I have read some of his stuff before.
Yeah, he's pretty well known, especially by Europeans, and I know that I have some Magnetic Press Lion Forge stuff that is by him. So yeah, he's really well known, and he's a good get for Rick Remender for this book.
Rick Remender has a great track record with picking up amazing artists, with Matteo Scalera, Wes Craig, Jerome Opeña, Tony Moore. He definitely is one of those guys who can attract high-level talent every single time.
Right.
Jerome Opeña, that 7 to Eternity art is a next-level book.
Yeah.
That art is unbelievable, and I can see why it takes so long for every single issue to come out, for sure. Yeah. I definitely like Bengal's art. Sometimes it was a bit manga-ish for me.
Oh, really?
There's always like perpetual tears in her eyes, and she's always like has beads of sweat on her face, which is a manga trope.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it was fine. You know, I'm not a huge fan of manga, but I mean,
neither am I.
But I thought the art was still really good. Like everyone's always constantly sweating in this book, which makes sense in really high stress situations. I can't imagine being in the situations that they find themselves in. But
the whole book is like 0 to 60 and then stays at 60 the whole time.
Oh, right. Yeah, it never slows down. But Bengal does an amazing job of drawing car crashes, especially, and car chases. I thought he did a phenomenal job with that. He has a very kinetic style that really moves the story forward. It's never boring. You're never confused as to what's going on. Obviously, this is a very over-the-top book. A lot of the car chases are very unrealistic, but who cares? It's comic books.
Yeah.
And I really like this cover right here. It's apes off the old Bullet poster,
right,
from the 60s. I was hoping to be able to watch that movie this week, but I wasn't able to get to it. I'm hoping to watch it because I've never seen it before. So yeah, I really enjoyed his artwork.
Yeah, and it made me want to watch Bullet again too. I remember watching it as like a 10-year-old, and again in my 20s in college. But that's got one of the most famous car chases in movie history. But I love the concept that she's got her own fortified vehicle that's practically bulletproof with bulletproof glass, and it's all hopped up. And
right,
then she's going up what she has to go up against to the bad guys. I don't know. We don't want to spoil it, but the bad guys in this book, what they're doing and what she's going up against. She has to get her father a liver, and she's living off the grid, and her father needs a new liver, and so she's out to get the cash for a new liver, and her psycho ex-husband, she has to deal with him, and we can go into that. But I think the really interesting, I think the bad guy is super interesting with the two kind of nuns that he's got. One
they're Amish or something.
Amish, okay, yeah, Amish. One's
Right
deaf,
here.
one's blind, or one's mute and
Yeah, one's mute and one's blind.
Yeah.
And there's a really creepy scene involving them. I'm not going to ruin it because it's the end of one of the issues. It's kind of a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Really creepy scene of how much they enjoy torture.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna spoil what that involved. But this book is filled with very horrible people saying and doing horrible things to other horrible people. So there's corrupt cops. There's those two Amish girls. There's a hitman who uses a nitroglycerin gun where he freezes people and breaks them apart, which was really disturbing.
Yeah, that was.
There's cartel soldiers who wear luchador masks. Like, this book is just Rick Remender spilling out the toy chest and just having fun, just doing whatever he wants. But you can tell he's having a blast with this book. It's like you said, 0 to 60. It's nonstop. It never slows down to take a breath. You can tell he's just doing whatever he wants to do. And so this book may not be for everyone because it is so violent. It is so crazy. It is so over the top. But I had a lot of fun with it.
I really enjoyed it. I thought the bad guys were particularly evil, but I thought they were intensely interesting too. I found them very interesting to read about, although they were, he made them over the top, disgustingly evil. I found them to be interesting to read and find out more about.
Yeah.
I openly rooted for their deaths because they were so awful. But I also was interested in reading about them because they were, they had kind of a twist to them. So, you know, like the nitrous oxide, frozen nitrogen guy, you know, that would freeze you. What they were really up to was just so heinous that I just wanted to read more about them.
And the crazy thing is that stuff actually happens in real life.
I was just going to say that. It's not, he's not really making that up. He's only a step away from connecting the dots to real life as to what these people are actually doing. So that's why I wanted to read more about it, because I felt like he was actually kind of telling the truth about people. So that's why I wanted to read more about it.
Right. I would say the violence is very, this book is very Quentin Tarantino-esque.
Yeah.
So if you like Quentin Tarantino movies, you're going to love this book. If you hate Quentin Tarantino movies, I would probably steer clear.
I agree with that.
If you love Inglourious Basterds, Django Unchained, Kill Bill, this book is going to be definitely for you. Quentin is one of my favorite directors, so you can see why I like this book.
Yeah, I totally loved this book, and I told Taylor that the only disappointment was at the very end when it said "to be continued." I want this whole thing now because it was so interesting, so nonstop, balls to the wall, pedal to the metal, gear grinding action that I just wanted more of it, and right. I loved this book a lot, and so I highly recommend it, with the caveat that Taylor was saying that it is definitely violent.
And the second volume, I think, comes out in May. So hopefully we'll get to review it over the next couple months sometime, maybe sometime next year. So that would be cool. In my opinion, it's not as good as Deadly Class or Black Science yet, but it's very solid. I think Black Science and Deadly Class had a better first trade for me, but it's still very good, and you should pick it up.
And I forgot to introduce our mascot,
Catwoman. That looks like Catwoman from Ed Brubaker's run.
Yeah, and she's fleeing with a bag full of money.
That's really cool. Where'd you get that?
I don't know. It was in a box that I think probably from Big Bad Toy Store. It was in a box, that I uncovered, and as I was plowing through some other things.
Was it a pain pill order?
It's all right. She's all right. I can just put her back together.
Was it part of a pain pill order?
Sorry?
Was it part of a pain pill order?
It was something I bought last year, and it was different than I thought it was going to be. But I'm really happy with it. And Tyler Blunt helped me order some tiny money to stick in her backpack.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's tiny money that she has. And so she's racing around with tiny money spilling out of her backpack. So it looks like she's really on the run.
So we both love Catwoman, especially Catwoman as done by Ed Brubaker and Tom King. So she'll definitely be the mascot of the show proudly.
Right. I'll put her in the thumbnail.
It's something we want to do for this show. At least I want to do this more. It's more of my part of this show, is to give you movie recommendations based on each book.
Okay.
So I have 2 movie recommendations because the next book, we'll get to it. I don't have any movie recommendations for it because I don't know what you'll find out in a second why I don't have any movie recommendations for it. So I get 2 for this one. So to kind of go off the whole driving motif, I picked one of my favorite crime movies, Drive, with Ryan Gosling. Have you ever seen this, Jess?
I haven't. I really want to see
it's
it.
on Netflix. You need to watch it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really want to see it.
That was released in 2011, and that's directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, and Ryan Gosling is the main star. I love every single thing about this movie. It has a really cool and stylish noir vibe. It has a really cool atmospheric score. Ryan Gosling gives a very reserved performance as just his name is just the driver. You never really find out his real name. He's a mechanic and a stunt driver by day and a heist getaway driver at night. And he barely talks throughout the movie. He's very walled off from the rest of the world until he sparks up a relationship with a mother and son who live in his building. He starts falling in love with her until her ex-husband comes back from prison and he brings all of his problems with him.
Ooh.
And so the driver gets involved in this heist, which of course does not go well, and it really entangles him with these low-level gangsters. And I don't want to spoil it more than that. And even though this movie is called Drive, there isn't a ton of car chases, but when they happen, they're very quick, they're very realistic, and they're very entertaining. The first 10 minutes of this movie is a hyper realistic car chase. It's not like Fast and the Furious when they're driving on ice with a submarine coming up behind them. It's something that can actually happen in real life. So it makes the stakes that much higher. Sometimes when you're watching an over ridiculous movie like Fast and the Furious, you never really care or worry about the characters because you know they're going to be fine. Like, you know, they could just like jump out of a moving car at 100 miles per hour and live. That's not how this movie operates. And the driver has one of the best tough guy movie lines in movie history, in my opinion, that I always laugh at it every single time. There's this one scene where a former client comes up to him in a diner and wants to, kind of talk about the heist that they performed. And Ryan Gosling just shuts him off and says, "Shut your mouth, or I'm going to kick your teeth down your throat and shut it for you." I just love that line where he just like shuts him off, like, "Shut up. Don't talk about this." And he has those moments where he's so reserved, he's so quiet, but he can just turn on that anger and that rage and just really go to town on people. And you see that happen a lot in this movie. So this movie is a very slow burn, but it's never boring. And I think you'll greatly enjoy it, Jess.
Okay, good.
And then my next choice is very similar in plot, but it's very different in its execution. That's Baby Driver.
I did see that twice.
What'd you think of it?
I loved it.
You saw it twice, so I guess you did like it.
Twice. I loved it both times.
I saw it in theaters 2 years ago, so I rented it from the library and watched it last night. And that's such a fun movie. It's much lighter and upbeat than Drive. Drive is much more serious. This movie is just fun and breezy. You don't have to think very much. It's a really good, entertaining 2 hours. And the plot's very similar. It's about a young man who, his name is just Baby, even though he has the other name you find out later, but he calls himself Baby, and he's indebted to this crime lord. And so he has to pay off his debt by performing all these different heists and being the getaway driver for different criminals. But this movie is mainly about a love story between Baby and this waitress named Deborah, who want to just ride off into the sunset and not look back. But of course, there's one last heist, one last score standing in the way. And of course, it doesn't go well, like every other heist in the history of movies. So I think you'll greatly enjoy this movie if you enjoyed Death or Glory. So I would definitely recommend both movies.
In earlier performances, you can see her in Downton Abbey as Lady Rose.
Me and Jess were just talking about how I don't like Downton Abbey before this stream, so he's trying to jam me up. So Jess, I think you should definitely give Drive a chance. It's on
okay.
Netflix.
Yeah, I want to.
So you already watched Baby Driver, so that's good.
I loved Baby Driver, so I'm happy to see Drive.
It's very different though, so don't expect it to be similar. Even the plot is somewhat similar, the execution is very different.
Okay.
Drive doesn't really have any humor in it. It's very serious. All right, so on to the next book, which I already hinted at with my view of it. So Jess, how about you read the back of it, because I don't have it in my collection because I read it on Hoopla.
Okay. This was given to me by my friend Kyle, and it's by Devin Grayson and Brian Steelfreeze. And I'll read the back. Dismissed as a quota minority hire by her work peers, Cuban-born and Florida-bred detective Isabel Cardona makes no friends on the Miami force by insisting that a series of seemingly unrelated murder cases lead to an urban legend contract killer known only as the Matador. Proving his existence soon becomes equal parts self-preservation and obsession. But how close to the dangerous Matador will Cardona have to get to make that happen? So every couple eventually has a fight.
Yes.
And this is where newlyweds Omnidog and Taylor had their first fight.
Yeah, we've been doing videos since June, I think. And we've agreed on we've been doing videos together since June, and we've pretty much agreed on everything. This is our first disagreement because I really, really dislike this book with a fiery passion. The more I think about it, the more I dislike it. It was one of those books that I read really quickly, not because I enjoyed it, but because I wanted it out of my life. I wanted to be done with it. Like, I don't want to read this, but I have to for the show. This book was a mess on every level for me. I thought the main character was very uninteresting. She had no agency. She was very passive. The story just happened to her. The main guy, the Matador, the reveal of who he is so dumb. It was one of the dumbest things I have heard or read in a long time, because they kind of set him up as a supernatural villain in the beginning. And the payoff is like, wait, what? That's what this has all been about? And it makes no sense as you go back throughout the story and try to figure out what was going on. And Brian Stelfreeze's art was really hit or miss for me. I thought his action scenes were very clunky and confusingly choreographed. I just didn't think he was as good as he could have been. I've read other books with him, and he's usually okay. I never find him to be great. He's just okay. But in this story, I feel like he was phoning it in through a lot of it. And the other part that really annoyed me was the social media pages in between each issue. Do you know what I'm talking about, Jess?
Yeah, I skipped those.
It was like it didn't belong in this book at all. It didn't like match with the tone of what was going on. It didn't help the story advance at all. And that really explains why I dislike this book so much, because it's so random. That's the word I want to say. It's random. It's disjointed. It's chaotic. It's all over the place. It has no through line. I just didn't enjoy it.
Well, I like this book. I'm not sure why I let you go first, but I definitely like this book. I felt that it flowed well. I felt he was an interesting, well drawn out character. She was fully fleshed out, and I felt like she made things happen in the book. She was interesting. The main character known as the Matador, I thought he was. I thought the reveal was an interesting reveal. I thought that he had a little more to him than just what was revealed. I don't think he had magic powers, but I thought he had some sleight of hand and some hypnotic things going on with him that maybe explained some of his abilities.
It'd be nice to be shared that information by the author.
Well, I also sort of picked up on that. So maybe he's wanting his readers to work a little to get that out of it. I don't know. I'm not looking for a fight here, Taylor.
Oh, I'm not trying to start one. I was just, I'm more picking a fight with Devin Grayson.
Oh, okay.
I think it's a woman actually. I think she's a woman.
Oh, I actually don't know.
I think I never read anything else by him or her, so I'm not sure.
I don't know. Let's ask Siri.
Your Siri things never go well.
You know. Is Devin Grayson?
She's a woman. I looked it up.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, she's a woman.
Shoot, I wanted to see if Siri knew.
Okay, sorry. That was gonna take like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Siri always messes up.
So anyway, I like the book. I thought it came to a dramatic and interesting conclusion. I felt like the book flowed well. I thought that it made sense. This is one of those books that it's just subjectively Taylor and I disagreed on. So take it with a grain of salt. Maybe you should rent the first, get the first issue on Hoopla and see if you liked it at all, or rent it on Hoopla. Or borrow it rather on Hoopla. Now that I have Hoopla, I can do things like that. I can just check a book out for free.
I was so thankful for Hoopla when it came to this book. If I had paid for this book, I would have been annoyed. So yeah, Jeff and I are still friends. We can disagree. It's not a big deal. He can like what he likes. It's fine.
So I enjoyed this book, and I felt the exact opposite of Taylor. I thought everything flowed well, was interesting, captured my attention, and I didn't see the holes that he saw. I read it again last night, and I really was objectively looking for all the plot holes and things that went wrong for him. And I couldn't see him. I mean, I was really looking for him. And I think that this is just a case of two people who saw a book differently. So
yeah, I think a lot of times with crime books, especially, the author should lay down like clues and like hints of what's to come, so that you can at least have a chance of guessing what's going to happen. That's part of the fun of crime books, is you trying to guess what's going on and what's going to happen. And this book, all the answers come out of left field, and you can never have guessed them. And I like surprises, but I like surprises in a way it's like, oh, I should have seen that coming, but I didn't. Where this book, I never could have guessed that any of these things were going to happen, because all the surprises, all the climax of the book was out of left field. I never could have guessed that. And it wasn't like in a fun way for me. I think really good crime writing hints at what's to come and says, hey, if you're smart enough, if you really think about it, you can figure this out. That wouldn't be able to happen in this book, in my opinion. That's just why I was frustrated with a lot of different ways. I feel like she just went in a bunch of different directions, and there was no like continuous through line through the book. Okay. So that's just my opinion on it.
Yeah. Well, I feel that there are no wrong opinions on comic books. Everybody's got their own opinion, and it's completely subjective, and you're not wrong and I'm not wrong. We're both right. We just both feel differently about the book.
Yeah. So I guess this is hard for the viewers because we're both split. So I guess you'll just have to try it and see what you think. Like Jeff said, I mean, try it on Hoopla at least, instead of see if you like it and see if you want to buy it. And now this said volume 1. It seemed like it was the end of the story, though. I don't think there's going to be any more, is there?
If they want to follow her in her next adventure, if Devin Grayson decides to have another adventure,
okay,
for the Cuban-born young lady.
It just seemed like it was very like conclusive. But I guess they could pick it up if they wanted to.
Yeah.
So I don't have any movie recommendations for this book. I couldn't think of. I couldn't think of one. So
think of the worst movies you've ever seen.
What's the worst movie? What's the worst movie you've ever seen?
Oh well, The Room is classically bad.
Yeah, but that's like more like fun than it is terrible. Like I feel like the worst movie of all time is a movie you don't even want to watch. I have to think about that.
Yeah, the worst movie. I mean, purposely. I know The Room. Next time I see The Room, I'm going to dress up in a tuxedo and take a football.
And it's spoons.
Spoons.
Did you ever see The Disaster Artist?
Yes, that was great.
So good. That was such a good movie.
That was great.
All right, you ready to move on to our last book?
Yeah, this one we agree on.
So I'll read the back, and Jess can show off the art because I actually have this book.
Okay.
All right. Former FBI, and by the way, this is American Carnage. Former FBI agent Richard Wright is about to receive that rarest of gifts, a second chance. But like anything worth having, it carries a high price. After leaving the Bureau in disgrace following the accidental shooting of a child, Wright has been steadily failing to make a living as a private investigator. When his old mentor asked him to infiltrate a group of white supremacists in Los Angeles to discover who was responsible for the death of a fellow agent, he realizes that this is his last shot at redemption. For a light-skinned, biracial man like Wright, however, it's an especially dangerous assignment. The organization is being torn apart by a power struggle between a charismatic leader with national political aspirations and the old-school rank and file who prefer cross-burning to public speaking. Navigating this minefield of hate while maintaining his cover will stretch him to the breaking point, and what he discovers in the belly of the beast will test everything he knows about himself. And so American Carnage is one of the last books to come out of the now defunct Vertigo imprint. And it's written by Brian Hill, who co-wrote the excellent series that I just finished a week ago, Postal. And he wrote that with Matt Hawkins. So as with the plot may sound kind of cliche, it may sound stale and unoriginal, but I found it to be anything but. I thought Hill was really able to sidestep a lot of the pitfalls that come with undercover cop stories, and he really subverted your expectations, and he really takes the characters in unexpected directions. And so this storyline never bored me, even though it wasn't always action-packed. There's a lot of conversations in this book, but the conversations were very interesting and moved the action forward, which is a sign of great writing, where you're hanging on the word of a conversation. And I don't think Hill really resorts to gimmicks or cheap tricks over the course of this book. He doesn't try to keep your attention with just quick, flashy images. He really steadily builds the narrative. It's a slow burn, and when it all comes crashing down, it's very surprising. What did you think, Jess?
Yeah, I agree. I think the one thing about undercover cop stories is they make me very nervous. And that's the sign of a good undercover story, is if I'm nervous for that person. If it's in a movie, if in a TV show, a book, or a comic book, I get really nerve-wracked for that undercover cop because I always feel he's just a step away from being exposed.
Yeah.
And that just flips me out. And I was flipped out during this book, which I think is a sign of good writing, because I felt like the undercover agent was doing a good job staying just below the radar, blending in, still able to report to his superiors, hiding his identity, but blending in, as I say, but still, there was still the danger that he could be discovered, and it still made me nervous. And I think he did a good job of kind of avoiding the cliche of the big. You know what I'm forgetting? I'm forgetting, where was the set?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Okay, so it wasn't a Southern gentleman; it was a Southern California gentleman. Because he has a cowboy hat on, that screwed with me up. That screwed me up a little bit. There's an awful lot of violence in this book too. But the cliche that the white supremacist who's sort of keeping it down low and prefers to do it through political means has the daughter that's sort of the power broker, that could have looked really lame if it wasn't done really carefully.
Right.
And I thought he handled it really well.
Because it shows him really going up against, like it said on the back of the book, the old guard racists, guys who just want to go up to their old shenanigans and just want to keep doing the same thing, cross burning and killing people. But he's like, no, if we want to move our white supremacist agenda forward, we have to be smarter about it.
Right.
I think Win Morgan, the main antagonist in this book, well, everyone's kind of an antagonist. There are no good guys and bad guys.
Yeah.
But Win Morgan, who is a white supremacist guy who's trying to become a senator, he's very smart about it. He doesn't try to interact with these people that much because he doesn't want to get dragged into their world. He's trying to advance his agenda in a very smart way.
Right.
So I thought he was very believable, at least for me, because he tried to keep his hands clean and let the dirty work go to his friends.
But he was, yeah, and he was very subtle about his hate. And that's sort of the scary thing, was that he was really kind of a master manipulator.
Right.
And he was, he wanted to be able to use his power through the government to keep it quiet, use it through the government to affect the change he wanted to do to set back civil rights and things like that, and to affect it in a, I don't want to say a sneakier way, but in a legal backdoor manner, and which is more subversive really than the cross burnings, because you're right, you're not going to get that far with cross burnings and beatings, but you get elected to office with that agenda, and you can promote your agenda really quietly and subtly through legal means that way.
Right.
Which is scarier.
Right. And I really found all the characters to be very flawed yet compelling.
Yeah.
And Hill really doesn't hold back on showing you the ugly side of racism, on showing you the ugly side of human nature. But at the same time, he doesn't paint white supremacists with a very broad brush. He really does a deep dive into their psyche and explains why people think this way, what led them to have these beliefs about other people. He shows that a lot of times that these types of people are filled with a lot of pain and confusion and frustration about their own lives. And it's much easier to point at someone who's different than you than to look in the mirror and look at your own problems and say that, hey, I'm part of the problem. This is my fault. Some of these things have happened to me. It's much easier to point your finger at the other and say it's their fault that my life's the way that it is. And that was really interesting for me. It wasn't a paint by numbers racist depiction. It was very unique and very different. I actually listened to Brian Hill on a podcast interview, and he said that he thinks that being African American helped him to write this book in a different way. He says, a white guy could have written this book well, but he came from a different perspective, and it gave him a little more freedom to ask and answer these questions than maybe a white writer could have. I found that really interesting perspective from him. And this book doesn't really have good guys or bad guys. It's filled with broken and flawed people who make very bad decisions and make a lot of moral compromises.
Right.
And it's very much a Shakespearean tragedy. That I really like this book in contrast to the Matador, not to really harp on the Matador again. I thought this book had a very cohesive through line, that it was inevitable what was going to happen. As you look back on it, the ending surprised me and shocked me, but looking back, I'm like, there's no other way it could have ended.
Right.
All the dominoes were falling and it led to that. That's a good crime book, in my opinion, where you're surprised, but after you're done, it all seemed inevitable. Like it had to happen that way. And that's why I love Breaking Bad, which is the poster behind me, because that just explores a man who's made these horrible choices, and it shows the consequences of his actions. And every single consequence makes sense. And every single consequence in this book makes sense as it really comes out of people's choices. And that's why I really enjoyed this book. It was realistic. It made sense. It was very much a character study and a Shakespearean tragedy.
Very well said.
And I don't want to end this review before we talk about Leandro Fernandez's art. He was crazy good in this book. Did you like him, Jess?
Yeah, I did.
He's very much like Eduardo Risso. I think that's the best way to characterize him. And that he actually drew a book that Jess and I both really love, and that is Old Guard by Greg Rucka.
Oh, yeah.
If you have never read The Old Guard, you definitely need to read that, because the movie's going to come out on Netflix next summer. And I'm pretty sure that the second arc of that book is about to start up in December. I think Leandro is able to really draw character moments really well. He's able to show human emotion very well, but also depict graphic, horrific images at the same exact time. And like Jess says, this book is excellent because it makes you feel nervous. It makes you feel like you're trapped in the situation with Richard. And a big part of that is the art. His art just really makes you feel all the emotions that Richard is going through. It makes you feel anger, rage, depression, sadness, and betrayal. And that's just because of the way the art is done and the way the colors are done by Dean White. The colors in this book are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
This book, in my opinion, is just a tour de force on every single level. I think the writing is excellent. The art is excellent. The colors are excellent. I just love everything about this book. And for me, it's one of the top 10 books of the year for me. I really loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun while it was very serious and dramatic at the same time. That it really made you think. A lot of times books can be fun, but they don't really make you think about life. They don't really make you think about all the different issues that are facing us as humans. And I really appreciate that Brian Hill really held up a mirror to us and made us look at ourselves in a deeper way.
Okay.
I greatly enjoyed it.
Did you have movies for this one?
I have one movie for it, and that is American History X. And so that came out in 1998. It was directed by a director that I've never heard of before. I've never seen any of his other movies. It's Tony Kaye, and it stars Edward Norton. And like American Carnage, this movie explores the themes of racism and rage, and also the consequences that we must suffer for our bad choices. And both stories really show us that the path of redemption is often filled with pain and suffering, because this story centers around an ex-neo-Nazi played by Edward Norton who gets out of prison for voluntary manslaughter. And he's reformed, he's changed his beliefs, he wants to be a productive member of society, but he finds out that his younger brother is walking down the same path that he did. So he's trying to rescue his brother from this life of being a neo-Nazi. And let me just warn you that this movie is very hard to watch. It's a very haunting movie that really leaves an impact upon you. It's not an easy watch because it's filled with a lot of violence, a lot of really rough language that includes racial slurs because it's very realistic. So it's a tough watch, but I think it's a necessary watch. I think it's a very, very impactful movie. It's entertaining, yet it really makes you think about your life. It really makes you think about anger, about racism, about how men especially think of masculinity and how it's really toxic masculinity that this movie really explores. So I think you would enjoy it as well, Jess, but it's very, you have to be in a certain mood to watch it.
Is it on Disney Plus?
Oh, of course.
Because I'm only watching Disney Plus movies right now.
There's a lot of R-rated movies on Disney Plus. No, but this is also on Netflix.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. So like I said, you have to be in a certain mood to watch this movie. Like sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to watch a heavy movie right now. I just want to sit back and just kind of not think and just laugh at something. That's not this movie. But it's an excellent performance from Edward Norton. It really makes you think. And it has it's also very tragic as well, like American Carnage.
Okay.
So before we wrap up, Jess and I want to share some of the music that we were listening to. Did you forget?
No, I mean, I can go grab a stack of the albums that I was listening to.
Yeah, why don't you go grab them? I'll talk about mine.
Okay.
So Jess and I wanted to talk about the albums and the soundtracks that we listened to as we read these books, because the crime genre is very mixed up with music. And I really thought it'd be a good idea to talk about things that we're listening to as we read these books, because I don't know about you as the viewer, I love to read. I like to read and listen to music at the same time, but I can't listen to things that have lyrics in it. I get really distracted if it's like a song with lyrics in it. It has to be a soundtrack. It has to be a jazz album, something like that. Whenever I read a fantasy comic book or a fantasy novel, I listen to Game of Thrones soundtrack. Whenever I read a sci-fi book, I like to listen to the Blade Runner 2049 score. So the perfect genre of music for crime, for me personally, is jazz. And I didn't appreciate jazz until I actually saw a live show at Preservation Hall in New Orleans, and I was just transfixed by it. And I became really excited about this genre, which I previously thought wasn't that exciting. And I really love it now. It's my go-to music for books in general, but mainly crime books. So I'm going to recommend 2 jazz albums to you as the audience. And I know Jess has told me he's not interested in jazz, so I'm just talking to you as the audience, not talking to Jess. So I'm going to recommend 2 jazz albums for you. First, you should listen to You Go to My Head by the famous saxophonist Art Pepper. And his songs really tend to be very quick and upbeat. So that would pair perfectly with a book like Death or Glory. So that's You Go to My Head by Art Pepper. And next is Mood Indigo by Frank Morgan, who also played the saxophone. And this album really tends to be more contemplative, more sorrowful, more thoughtful. So it would go really well with a book like American Carnage. It really pairs well with the themes of this book. And something really interesting about both of these artists, both of these saxophonists, is that they both struggled with drug addiction, and they both were sent to the same prison, and they actually formed a ensemble in San Quentin prison. And they would actually play together and perform concerts there, which is really cool. So I would encourage you to give both Frank Morgan and Art Pepper a chance if you want to dip your toes into jazz while you're reading. So those are my recommendations.
Well, nobody's going to ever have heard of any of the groups I listen to, because I listen to ambient music from Bleep Records in England. I listen to vinyl, and like this is by a group, PCM. It's called, the album's Adaverso. And it's colored vinyl, which I like to collect.
It's like see-through. That's cool.
Yeah, it's clear vinyl. So that was one of the albums I listened to.
And we'll put these in the description below for those of you who want
to. Nobody's gonna want to listen to what I listen to. It's so obscure. It's so crazy. Now this, I can't even tell you what this is, because there's no I wonder if there's even a sheet in here of what this is, because there's no information. Oh, here it is. It's from the Brain Feeder label. But I'm not picking up on what it doesn't have anything on the side, so I can't tell you who it is. This is the album, but and then there's no information on the on the record itself. So
if you want to listen to this album, you'll never find it now.
Yeah, we'll have to skip this one. Let's see, what's this one?
I think you underestimate how much people respect your opinion, Jess. I'm sure someone will try it. I think you're underestimating how much people respect your opinions. Someone might try this.
This is actually a beautiful album, Get Lost by Bruno Bavota, multi-instrumentalist. This is actually really good.
I know I'm always looking for new things to listen to while I read, and I'll give these a try. So I think other people
actually really good ambient music.
Okay.
Background music.
I'll try that.
Okay. I should stop there.
All right.
And I'll try and figure out the name of this other one.
So in the comments below, please tell us the music you like to listen to as you read comics, especially crime comics. And also in the comments below, tell us the books that you would like us to review in the future. We're definitely looking for more ideas. We have a bunch of different ideas, but we want to keep this show going for a while. So let us know what books you're interested in us reviewing and doing a deep dive on as well. And so if you haven't caught our other show as well, we do a show every other Saturday, Batter Days in the Bat Cave. And our next show is going to be next Saturday, November 30th. So please catch us on that show if you haven't already.
Yeah, we'll see if we can actually get our guest to show up to that show.
I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to jinx it. We're supposed to have Tyler Blunt on next time to review the Batman TMNT crossover volume of the first volume of that. So hopefully he'll be able to show up for that.
Yeah, it'll depend on whether there's a new popcorn store in town or not.
That's our new favorite joke, the popcorn store.
Yeah, because he loves the popcorn store. Okay, well, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you to our viewers. I appreciate you're watching our show. Please leave a comment. We always respond to comments. Please hit the like. Feel free to subscribe. And as always, peace and love. Peace and love. Thank you for watching.
See you guys.